Hello everyone, you're on the channel Who Created It and How. Today, let's talk about something we all use every single day, often without a second thought. The clock. Who actually invented it? And how did we get from staring at the sun to checking our smartwatches? It's a fascinating story, so let's dive in. The journey of timekeeping began long before any gears or hands were involved. Ancient civilizations, like the Egyptians, were the original timekeepers. Around 3500 BC, they invented sundials. These were simple but ingenious. An obelisk, a tall, four-sided stone pillar, would cast a shadow on the ground. As the sun moved across the sky, the shadow would move too, pointing to different marks that indicated the time of day. It was like a giant stationary clock, powered by the sun. But, as you can probably guess, sundials had a pretty big flaw. What happens when the sun goes down? Or on a cloudy day? They were completely useless. People needed a way to tell time at night and in any weather. This limitation led to the invention of water clocks, or clepsydras, around 1500 BC, also by the Egyptians. These were a huge leap forward. A typical water clock was a container with a small hole at the bottom. Water would drip out at a constant rate, and markings on the inside of the container would show how much time had passed. It was a simple concept, but it worked day or night, rain or shine. The Greeks and Romans later refined these water clocks, adding more complex features like bells and moving figures that would mark the hour. They were becoming more than just timekeepers. They were early examples of automation. But water clocks weren't perfect either. The water flow could change with temperature, and they needed to be refilled constantly. People were still searching for a more reliable and precise method. Other ancient methods included hourglasses, which used sand, and candle clocks, where the burning wax would mark the passing hours. These were useful, but not as accurate as what was to come. The real revolution in timekeeping came with the invention of the mechanical clock. This is where things get a bit tricky because we can't point to a single person and say, they invented the clock. It was more of an evolution, a series of brilliant inventions by many people over several centuries. The key breakthrough was the escapement mechanism. This is the heart of a mechanical clock. It's the device that controls the release of energy from a weight or spring, moving the gears forward in a regular ticking motion. The first known mechanical clocks appeared in Europe in the late 13th century. These weren't personal clocks you could hang on your wall. They were massive iron frame structures housed in monastery and cathedral towers. Their main purpose wasn't to tell ordinary people the time minute by minute, but to call monks to prayer at specific hours. These early clocks were often driven by large weights and were notoriously inaccurate, sometimes losing or gaining as much as half an hour a day. They usually didn't even have faces or hands, they just struck a bell on the hour. One of the earliest recorded examples was the clock installed at Dunstable Priory in England in 1283. Another famous early clock was built by Richard of Wallingford in the 1330s, an astronomical clock that not only told the time, but also tracked the moon, stars, and planets. These were incredible feats of medieval engineering. So while we don't know the name of the very first person who built a mechanical clock, we do know that it was a collaborative effort by European craftsmen and monks. The technology slowly spread across Europe, with each new clockmaker adding their own improvements. The next major leap forward came in the 17th century, thanks to a Dutch scientist you've probably heard of, Christian Huygens. In 1656, inspired by the investigations of Galileo Galilei into pendulums, Huygens invented the pendulum clock. Galileo had noticed that a pendulum of a specific length swings back and forth at a constant rate, regardless of how wide the swing is. Huygens applied this principle to clockmaking, creating a timekeeping device that was unbelievably accurate for its time. The pendulum clock was a game changer. Instead of losing 15 or 30 minutes a day, Huygens' clocks were accurate to within about 15 seconds a day. This was a massive improvement. For the first time, clocks were reliable enough to have a minute hand. Soon after, the second hand was added. Timekeeping became precise. People could now schedule meetings, coordinate travel, and conduct scientific experiments with a level of accuracy that was previously unimaginable. Huygens' invention made clocks a staple in wealthy homes and scientific institutions. But there was still a problem. Pendulum clocks are great if they're sitting still on a mantelpiece, but what about on a ship, tossing and turning on the waves? The pendulum would swing wildly, making the clock useless. This was a huge issue for navigation. Sailors needed to know the precise time to calculate their longitude and figure out where they were at sea. An inaccurate clock could mean getting lost, shipwrecked, or worse. This problem, known as the longitude problem, was one of the greatest scientific challenges of the 18th century. The British government even offered a massive cash prize for anyone who could solve it. The hero of this story is a self-taught English clockmaker named John Harrison. Over several decades, Harrison dedicated his life to building a marine chronometer, a clock that could keep accurate time at sea. His first few attempts, known as H1, H2, and H3, were large, complex, and brilliant machines, but they weren't quite perfect. His masterpiece was H4, completed in 1759. It looked like a large pocket watch about 5 inches in diameter. It used a fast-beating balance wheel controlled by a temperature-compensated spring instead of a pendulum. On its trial voyage to Jamaica in 1761, H4 performed spectacularly, losing only 5 seconds over 81 days at sea. Harrison had solved the longitude problem and revolutionized maritime navigation. Harrison's work paved the way for portable timepieces. Clocks were no longer just for towers or living rooms. They could be carried around. Pocket watches, which had existed since the 16th century but were very inaccurate, became much more reliable. In the 19th century, mass production techniques made clocks and watches affordable for the average person. For the first time in history, personal timekeeping became widespread. The 20th century brought even more innovation. In 1927, Warren Marrison at Bell Telephone Laboratories developed the first quartz clock. These clocks use the vibrations of a tiny quartz crystal to keep time. An electric current makes the crystal oscillate at an incredibly precise frequency, over 32,000 times per second. Quartz clocks were far more accurate and cheaper to produce than mechanical ones, and they quickly took over the market. Most of the clocks and watches we use today are still based on this technology. But the quest for perfect time didn't stop there. The ultimate in precision timekeeping is the atomic clock. Developed in the 1950s, these clocks don't use pendulums or quartz crystals. Instead, they use the natural, consistent vibrations of atoms, specifically cesium atoms. An atomic clock measures the frequency of the radiation produced by electron transitions in these atoms. It sounds complicated, but the result is a clock so accurate it won't lose or gain a second in millions of years. Atomic clocks are the backbone of our modern world. They are essential for GPS systems, which work by calculating the time it takes for signals to travel from satellites to your receiver. They also synchronize our internet networks, financial transactions, and power grids. Every time you use your phone's map, you're relying on the incredible precision of atomic clocks. So, who invented the clock? There's no simple answer. It wasn't one person, but a long line of innovators stretching from ancient Egyptians building sundials to modern physicists working with atomic clocks. It was a gradual evolution, driven by the human desire to measure, understand, and control our world. Each invention, from the water clock to the pendulum, from the marine chronometer to the quartz watch, built upon the last, making timekeeping more and more precise. The story of the clock is really the story of our journey from living by the rhythms of nature to creating a world built on nanoseconds. It's a testament to human ingenuity and our endless quest for precision. What do you think is the most important invention in the history of timekeeping? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this journey through time, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Who Created It and How for more stories about the inventions that shape our world. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.